Let me start with a short story, short memory. It was hot rather, summer afternoon in Moravia. We were having with Magda picnic, chatting loosely about the podcasts, sipping kofola, correct me if I'm wrong, and eating ice cream.
Yes.
and scribbling in a giant notebook. And you, Magda, came to this party with a wonderfully peculiar run.
Yes, indeed. We were talking a bit about our work, and I was talking about Agile and Scrum. And I think that I was also thinking about my beginnings in this whole Scrum world. And I was complaining, as sometimes it happens to me, about the fact that Agile maybe it's not anymore, but used to be very masculine in a way that is like, oh, we're cool bros and we're meeting here to record a session, or, let's have a meetup and let's have loads of beers. And it was all around, two guys or more, talking first about what, artisanal beers they were having, and then moving on to talking about Agile. And by this, I already felt like, well, is this actually my place just because I'm a woman and I prefer wine? Because of that, will they accept me, or will they treat me as, oh, she's a woman, drinking wine? Another one in the club. So I started also digging into Agile, how exclusive it actually is. If you look at the very beginnings of Agile, actually the Agile Manifesto was written by only white men coming basically from the US. I'm not saying that they
weren't aware that feels exclusive for women and for non-binary people.
Yeah.
Or non-beer people.
Yes, I always, try to understand that the intention is always good, right? And then we're all humans. We sometimes don't realize that we're making a mistake and we were making the other person feel something that we're not really intending on creating this feeling or this emotion. So they might not have been, aware, or they were not aware of this fact. But I think that, a few years later, if we're still doing this, I'm going to say it because I think it's a special episode. So I'm not going to be very diplomatic. If we're creating a sausage party, well, great. But this is like the perfect way of excluding many people. So as you were saying, we're not only talking about women, but we're talking also about people, LGBTQ+. Everyone who's different, right? And so looking at it even further, and I think that many organizations even nowadays make this mistake. We impose Agile or Scrum, or we even force it without even explaining to the people in this organization why we're doing this, right? It's like, ooh, now you need to start with having sprint planning sessions and sprint reviews and daily scrums, and you need to have it in place. You need to have it in the calendar. We're going to be checking it. And then people are like, okay, but why are we having this, right? And this is the point why Agile can be also very exclusive, because it can be forced onto people without really taking into account the whole implementation process, to communicate it, to say, why are we doing this? What's the value behind it? To actually start thinking about humans and people instead of only the process. So we're getting back into the Agile Manifesto that was saying, okay, we want to put people over processes, but actually we're still doing it the other way around.
Good for people if they realize they have this moment of consciousness. Why are we doing this? But I believe in most companies, most people would say, just, oh, okay, whatever, we're doing Scrum. That means we'll be doing such meetings, such stand-ups, etc., etc. So cool. The name on the tickets just changes.
Exactly. And it's important. Well, you're Agile, you need to have Jira, right? Because like if you don't have Jira, you're not Agile. People forget Jira is only a tool that can help you, but it also causes loads of problems. Like I know in my organization, we have different teams. They use Jira differently. And, looking at the problems that sometimes Jira can cause, it can be very disturbing to a team and to their work, actually. So you also need to be smart about what tools and how you're using them and why is really needed, right? So I keep on questioning everything in my organization. Sometimes I'm not very likable by some people, but I think that this is the only way to cause this curiosity in people to be like, okay, this is the beginning. Let's talk about why, because maybe you don't need it. Maybe there is a simpler way that we can go around it and care about people even more, right? Because it's super easy to take an Excel spreadsheet, do a list of, do we have the Scrum events? Do we have all the artifacts? Do we have all the Scrum accountabilities? Yes. Okay, great. Let's then start. And it's like, well,
so what do we start?
Yes. What do we start? Is it the case of okay, so we're starting with a daily Scrum, right?
Should we disperse? Should we code? Should we design?
Yeah.
Should we, I don't know, make a coffee?
Oh, and my favorite part, and I think that can be also something we can talk about, that I find super interesting, but I actually don't have a lot of women I can talk about it. And I know to share that with you, I can do that.
Yes, you can.
Scrummy, scary people is that they love velocity and they love user story points. To those of you who don't know what this is. So basically, user story points are the points that each team gives to their tasks. They basically say, or they should be saying, how complex a particular thing to do will be. It doesn't mean that it has to be linked to the time. So if you say, okay, this task should be 1 point, it doesn't mean that it's 1 day. It means that it's just a simple task. It doesn't include, a lot of complicated things.
Yeah. And the unit here for measurement is complexity, which is perfectly understandable.
And in each sprint, so in each kind of iteration, it depends on the team. Let's say we have a team that has their sprint lasting for 2 weeks. Then they agree upon how many of these user story points they will be able to complete. Let's say 20, right? I'm just making it up. And that is called velocity. If they are able to complete 20, okay, we know that 20 user story points, that's per team. And this is all great, but it also causes a lot of different problems. So first of all, as you already started talking, Tysia, is to actually make sure that the team are all on the same page when it comes to estimating those story points. And that's a hell of a job. To then measuring it. And what my issue is that sprints are different, right? And I know people can say, okay, so then instead you would take 3 sprints and you will get an average from all these 3 sprints. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. However, it's always, people want to compare. And for example, I attended a conference back in October, and 2 very interesting, nice ladies actually presented their speech on menstruation and how menstruation can actually affect velocity and also any other cycle flows if we're doing some other T metrics. That made me think, okay, so we want to have, average, we want to stick to the same number every time. We're like robots, but actually we're not. If you have more people menstruating on your team, you should remember that, the first 2 days are a hell of a ride, and they can also slow down your velocity, right?
Yeah, because human brain is on vacation.
Yes, exactly. My brain is like, ooh, Twin Peaks, hello. It's like, we don't think about it. We don't talk about it. We menstruate, we sometimes feel worse. So our productivity will be different. And that's also about inclusivity. I actually had this conversation last week with one of the directors who wanted to actually compare different teams and their velocity. Of course, I didn't tell him about the period case because I would get burned.
You can easily use any example of some mental.
Yeah, I exactly said, look, like you have neurodiversity, but you also have different teams with different people working on different products. They're with different sizes. I mean, you cannot compare. You cannot compare everything. It's like with, it sometimes annoys me with like movie ratings. It's like, oh, it's only 5 on IMDb. I'm not going to watch it. That's it, right? Like, that's my kind of goal for this year, to make some people think about the qualitative area, not only quantitative, not only numbers, but again, we're humans. Let's do this. And I think that this is an important thing. It's like, are we actually implementing those processes or frameworks in case of Scrum? Are we doing it with respect to other people? I mean, as you were mentioning, if you have someone on the spectrum, sometimes those even small changes can be so difficult. They can cause so much anxiety. You need to kind of deal with it, right?
Yeah.
And that's like on us as like leaders, team leaders, managers, to make everyone feel good and safe.
And there's one other thing that makes me laugh a bit about Scrum and sticking to this methodology so religiously. In Makimo, we often deal with legacy systems. Clients come to us that they have a piece of code. They've no idea what to do with this, but they need some features to be done, some maintenance, etc. And there are dragons there often. So you might have all nice plans to fix this within a week, within a sprint. But then you start digging in and you find a pile of radioactive
Yes, that's life.
that flips all your planning, all your assumptions upside down. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly the thing. And this is why, like, when I work with my teams, I always tell them, don't really focus, don't overdo it when it comes to estimation. Now, it's a very long story, why we do these when some teams are like, I'm trying to move away, but that's a different story. But exactly what you're saying. You can sometimes really spend hours on planning, right? And like discussing why this task is 1, or maybe it should be 5. It's like, does it really matter? Are you able to actually complete it within the next 2 weeks? Do you feel that?
As long as it's not critical and you won't, I don't know, paralyze the entire airport, for example, construction site because of your estimations, then, well, whatever.
Yeah.
You might play with story points and velocities and scrums, plannings, dailies, but sometimes at the end of the day, you look at it and say, wow, it's more like Prince Stefan.
Yeah, and you can...
It's kind of bummer to admit this.
Yes, but like, sometimes I say, because like also as humans, we tend to fall into this trap. Oh, well, we failed. We didn't meet the sprint goal, this sprint. We estimated something wrongly, right? Everything is super bad. And I'm like, okay, so taking to your example, okay, so you didn't save the airport, but you maybe saved the world, right? So it's like, let's look at what you did instead. Because sometimes what you did instead can bring even, higher value. And I'm not talking about money, but like I'm talking about value in general. Maybe you brought a higher value to the world by addressing this nuclear bomb instead of addressing something else that was at the very beginning of the sprint. This is life, right?
Getting back to your initial rant, it's easier to sell Scrum beers, picnics with sausages and pork chops on Instagram and on TikTok than defusing nuclear bombs.
Yes, exactly. But again, it can relate to my very first point that still, when you look at Agile coaches, any blogs, I would like to say organizations, the majority of the people are males. And again, I'm not talking they're not inclusive. I'm sure they have like the best intention, but like we need more diverse people around, or people who really, experienced a lot of like different teams working with like people, again, who present diversity in any kind of scope, right? I think that the current kind of Agile society, when I look at it, we're starting to take that into account, but it's a really long way still.
And there are so many disciplines that got gendered. I don't know why, because they have no gender, no sexuality connected to the entire process. For example, knitting. I'm a knitter, but also yoga. And if you Google or search on Instagram yoga, you will see ladies doing fancy poses and accounts, influencers like boys of yoga or men of yoga are kind of rebellion. And yet, Magda, you recently, and that's the reason for our longer break, joined the movement of yoga in more serious way.
Yes, it was a very spontaneous decision, I have to say, because I decided to do a yoga teacher training, which actually two, because one is with the vinyasa style and the other one is earlier yoga with hammocks. It's not like I've been planning it for years and it was the dream of my life. It actually started in a very, I'd say, funny, but I think that many teachers start in this way. So, with a few friends, we went for one of the holidays and I was like, oh, I need to do some yoga. And some of the female friends joined me. So I kind of taught this yoga practice. And then afterwards we started talking and they were saying oh, would you consider even going to such a teacher course? We think you would be good. And the conversation was long. I put it away. But then things went in a way that, I started, researching, looking after different things. And it turned around that there was this very last place in this course for autumn. So I was like, okay, this is a sign I need to go for it. So I went for it.
Eventually you did full Jim Carrey in Yes Man, but you were the Yes Woman.
Yes, exactly. It was a really tiring time, but I'm glad that my manager, my directors, they were all understanding that sometimes I wasn't on my the fullest energy.
I was understanding.
You were super understanding. I was really done. So anyway, I completed it and now I'm also, being a yoga teacher after hours, so to speak. And I think it also helps me in my job as an Agile lead to definitely be more understanding and to notice, some behaviors, some reactions, to maybe also not to overreact, to be kind of more patient as well. I think it definitely helps. So I can recommend it. But yes, this is kind of new me now, which is very interesting. It's rediscovering my body and kind of myself all over again.
Did you have a lot of men in your teaching?
No,
course?
I only had one male person, and I totally agree with you that yoga has become very feminine nowadays, which is also interesting, and it's some kind of a paradox. It's with the pink color, right? That many, many years ago, pink was actually reserved for men because of many different social and historical changes. Now it's blue, and pink is supposed to be, girly.
Fortunately, marketers started noticing that genderizing toys is pointless.
Yeah.
Although I'm full pink right now.
But, I mean, who doesn't like pink? I think men also like pink. They just hide it.
They're starting showing this.
Yeah. Well, my husband has some pink clothes. And to be honest, I've never thought about, oh, this is pink, this is girly, right? For me, it's rather about the shade. Which shade fits you, right? Because you can have the Barbie pink and you can have the salmon-ish.
As long as your husband feels good in this, well, whatever works.
Yeah. So anyway, male yoga. So
but yoga helps you understand your team better, be more patient, but you also have one special project in your life called Reset Yoga.
Yes. So I'm starting with it. Reset Yoga Magda is my Instagram account. I'm still doing kind of baby steps. But what I'm trying to do is to of course show some of the yoga world. But I don't address I don't address my yoga because that's also not my intention to put, all the pictures or videos of doing difficult poses and being like super fit whatsoever. That's not my point because that's not yoga for me. And it's also not about showing myself in the Alo Yoga, Lululemon, any other companies. Even in Poland, we have those yoga companies that I've heard are not very inclusive and not very ethically good. So that's not my point. My point for yoga is that I can see my friends or the group of people that I start helping or that I start also teaching yoga, which is interesting. I've got a lot of people who have some hormonal issues. It could be, thyroid or any other like imbalances, hormonal imbalances. Neurodiversity. Now I started teaching a class to a group of women with ADHD. I also noticed that there are quite a few women who are around this menopausal time that they contact me, that I also help them or teach them. So I think that the value I should bring to the yoga world is to help people get their balance back, to feel better in their bodies. So that will be kind of my intention, to show a bit of more lifestyle or the way of thinking, because very often it's around, how we deal with emotions, how we think about our daily lives, work, family, etc. Right?
Sometimes it's not getting into balance, but reconnecting with the body or with your mind in the first place, because there are two separate things existing.
Yes, exactly. So that's kind of my intention. Maybe that's also caused because of the problems I have been dealing with. And I can see now, I'm experimenting a lot, but I can see now what's working, what doesn't. And, many yoga teachers, I'm not saying all, but like I like to also go to a yoga class with a teacher who's experienced and who knows what they're dealing with. So if I have a very young person, let's say 20 or 22 or something like that, I know, okay, like this person can lead the practice, be great, but that's it, right? You're only coming, you're taking part in the practice and you're leaving. You're not really making any connection with this teacher. Now, for me, I've also experienced loads of different yoga teachers, and I have a couple actually that I really follow, that I still attend to their classes because I know I can trust them because of their wisdom, right? What they've been through, they know what they're dealing with. If you tell them what's happening with you, what kind of problems you have, they also are able to give you an advice, which is very comforting.
Comforting and reassuring that maybe it is yoga. It's not about all those figures, about headstands, even though headstands have their meaning within this whole system of asanas, but that you can feel safe not doing all those poses and just doing your best, be the best version of yourself.
Yes, and do whatever makes you happy, right? Whatever you feel good about. That's the difference between doing like yoga and also then getting into this more philosophical world and, becoming a better person rather than attending a fitness class in any fitness club, right? Yoga is not about fitness. Yoga is not about losing weight. Yoga is about, being healthy and feeling good with yourself.
Although I'm still a great advocate for online classes as long as they fit your schedule and they fit your life and make you feel better.
Yeah, I love my group of women, but at the same time, I know they would benefit much more if we were there in person. But at the same time, we were talking about it in one of our previous episodes,
yes,
right? About yoga. So if you want to listen to it, go ahead. It's also a very interesting episode, I think, with Magda and Tysia. We will link to this episode. So exactly, because all these women are actually spread across Poland, and sometimes they come from very, very small towns. For them, it's like it's the only way to actually start their, adventure with yoga and to really start doing something more. So it is what it is. It's not as bad after all.
Are you planning any online classes? Like even live classes?
I think at some point, yes. not in a close future, just because I have this one group online, and now I'm also having quite a few hours in my kind of yoga home, my yoga school that I started with everything. So time-wise, it might be difficult, but we never know what the future brings. So
if you're not Warsaw-based or not willing to come to Warsaw for each Magda's class, follow her on Instagram at Reset Yoga Magda, link in the description below. And that's the main reason for a longer break and for some changes in the Let the Tech Out. It's not a break-up, it's just that we both need some space for other things in our life. Magda needs. I don't.
yes.
I will continue.
So for me, it's not a goodbye.
No. There will be no other co-host. There's always space for you here in the second seat. And expect some more exciting episode on tech and society coming out soon.
Yes, exactly. It's been a great adventure, and again, I'm not saying goodbye to it because I think it's too great of an idea and initiative to just let it go. But for now, by the yoga philosophy, I need to let go for at least a few months to find some different space and find some time, basically. But definitely, and I will keep my fingers crossed for you, Tysia. I'm really excited for two things. I'm excited for you and for Let It Tech Out with the kind of new beginning.
I follow your account like crazy. Maybe not always sending cards, but always my mind and my heart is with you.
Thank you so much. And I'll be also sending lots of hearts to Let It Tech Out.
Yeah.
And if there is any cool guests or any cool topic, I'll be letting you know, and then we can also figure something out.
Yep. Marketing duties. Follow the beautiful work in progress known as our Instagram and LinkedIn accounts at Let the Tech Out, and YouTube channel, the same name. Write to us with anything at letthetechout@gmail.com. Like, comment, subscribe. Find us anywhere you want. And yes, that's all for now. Thank you, podcast bestie.
Thank you so much, and I hope to see and hear you soon again.
Live
on this channel
and on this channel.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.